Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Crashum, and it's from the company Wacky Works. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. There will be a link up in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Those links will take you to the Kickstarter page. You can find out more information, and hopefully you'll consider backing the project. Now, what is Crashum? This is a competitive game that's basically a demolition derby. Every player is taking control of a different monster truck, and you are trying to maneuver it around the course in order to take out your opponents. You crash into them, you use power-ups like rockets and flamethrowers and guns, and you try to just basically outmaneuver your opponent and outthink your opponent, because you have to pre-program your actions ahead of time, though you do have some control over how it works. And there's also an app involved as well. Let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played with a prototype version of the game. So bear that in mind. Whatever you see in this prototype overview may be different when it comes time for the final version, but then we're going to come back. I'll give you my final thoughts. Crashum is a competitive game for 3 to 6 players. Players each take control of a monster truck involved in a demolition derby. You'll be smashing other cars and using power-ups to deal damage to them. The game ends when one car is completely totaled, or when one player has given out all their damage tokens, and then you add up points. The board is double-sided, with one side for 3 players and the other side for 4 to 6 players. Players get a car miniature, a token they put on the one spot of their speed meter, and a stack of damage tokens that are shuffled and placed face down. The race card deck gets shuffled and 6 cards are dealt to each player. The power-up deck just gets shuffled for now. Crashum will have a timer app that you can download for smartphones and tablets. You'll play this app during the first phase of the game, the planning phase. You can set it to run at either 20 seconds, 15 seconds, or 10 seconds. The less time, the harder it is to plan, obviously. I'll play an extended version of the app for you now so that you can hear what it will sound like. When everyone's ready, you'll hit start on the app, and on the third beep, everyone picks up their race cards and hurriedly chooses 3 to play. You will put these in order of your choice along your edge of the board. Make sure the half of the card that you want to use is pointed towards the board. If the horn sounds before you have selected 3 cards, you must stop looking at the cards, shuffle them up, and fill in the remaining card slots with random cards. The remaining cards in your hand are discarded, and you can't hold on to them for future rounds. The next phase is execution. Everyone flips their first race card. Each race card has a reaction speed in the top left corner. The card with the lowest number resolves first, then the next lowest, and so on. After the action resolves on the card, the race card will move a number of hexes equal to your current speed. After that, the card is discarded, and when all players have done this, you move on to the next card, do the same thing, and then do the third card. After this, shuffle up all of the cards, deal them out again, and start a brand new round in the same manner until you hit one of the game end conditions. Back to the race card actions. There are 5 of them, and they always resolve before your speed movement. Steering turns your car 1 or 2 spaces left or right, depending on the card, and then you move your speed in that new direction as normal. Gear up moves your speed meter up 1, which means you'll immediately go 1 space further. Reverse backs your car up 1 space, and you then skip your speed movement for this action. U-turn rotates your car 180 degrees. Finally, Nitro moves the car forward 2 spaces, and then you still get your speed movement. It's of course probable that cars will crash. If you crash into the walls of the arena, your car stops and you lose 1 speed. If you hit another car by moving into its space, you stop moving. But the hit car gets pushed 1 space out, and you give that player one of your damage tokens face down to put into his play area. You can only damage each car once per round, and their speed also goes down in this situation. At the end of the round, all damage tokens are flipped up. If you're damaged, you can't use the depicted action on the token, although you can still use the speed movement by playing the card that has that action. Finally, let's talk about the power-ups. You only get a power-up card from the top of the deck when you move yourself into one of the power-up spaces. You may only use one power-up per turn. It must be right before or right after your race card action, and you can't use it the same turn that you receive it. You also have a limit of 3 power cards in hand. Some power-ups deal damage, and therefore you hand the damaged player one of your tokens, but in this case it does not make them lose speed as it normally would in a crash. There are power-ups like Rocket, which hits a car in front of you in a straight line, Shield, which prevents you from taking damage for the rest of the round, and Energy Drink, which will rotate your current race card so that the other action now resolves instead. Crashum ends when either one player receives their 5th damage token, or when one player has given out all 6 of their tokens. You then count up points. You get 1 point for each of your damage tokens on the other players, multiplied by the number of players who have one of your tokens. So for example, if you have 4 damage that is on 3 different players, your point total would be 12. 3 players times 4 damage tokens that's on those players. And that's it. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game is the winner of Crashum. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. The thing that strikes me the most about Crashum is that it's a very fast game, it's a very easy game to learn, and yet despite that, there's a surprising amount of stuff going on in this game, a lot of things for you to sink your teeth into. First and foremost, you have the whole planning phase, and it's not strictly necessary that there be an app in order to use for the planning phase. I mean, a regular timer would work, but it just gets your excitement up. So it's a very interesting thing that they're adding that, because if you think about it, if you've ever been to a demolition derby, I think I was to one when I was a very, very, very young up in Ohio. But it's all about this loud noise and this visceral rush and the music playing over the loudspeakers and the announcer, and there's all these different feelings going on. So, and when you hear the timer going down, you hear the beeps, and then you hear the horn, it's like, you got to get it done. It just kind of gets you amped up, and it has that excitement. But at the same time, while this is going on, you have to make important decisions. You have to decide how you're going to program your car, because it's going to maneuver in that way for the rest of this round, and that's it. Once you're locked in, unless you use, of course, like one particular power-up that lets you flip one around. But other than that, that's it. You're locked in. And it may sound easy at first, like, well, you may have up to 20 seconds to figure out what 3 cards you're going to use, but each card has 2 different sides. So now it's like, which side do I use? And, it's a lot of pressure, like, to make sure that you don't accidentally put down the wrong side of the card towards the board. So that's a whole frantic thing. But once you're done with that, then it just comes down to, executing these things and sort of watching what happens out on the board. But that's where the power-up cards come in. So even though it seems like, well, it's out of my hands now, once you start aiming for those power-up spots and you get those cards, now there enters a whole other type of hand management aspect of the game. There's 2 different types of hand management going on, because now when do I selectively use these cards? When is it going to be most beneficial to me? You also have to make decisions as to which person you're going to target, because the end game scoring makes that very interesting, because now you have to decide, okay, if I may want to end the game sooner, so let's focus fire and try to take one person out. That could end the game. But if I haven't spread around my damage tokens enough, that's going to be a problem for me. But maybe I'm the one who's really, really damaged, and now I have to start making a decision as to how this game is going to end, or trying to protect myself and running out the time to let all the damage stack up on everyone else. A lot of really interesting decisions that have to be made within that context, and just in the context of the game as a whole. Deciding when to use the special actions on your cards to make a U-turn or to back up, and this is where the anticipation of the other players, or anticipating what the other players are going to do, really hits home. You have to try to figure that out. What is the most likely thing they're going to do? If you look at the other players' tokens, are they going to go after me because they don't have one of their damage tokens on me yet? In which case, I need to avoid them and try to target somebody else and get out of their way. So you have all these different things to worry about, but I'll stress again, as I said at the beginning of this rant, is that The game is easy to learn, fast to set up, fast to play, and I think that's very important for the target audiences of this game. And I think that target audience is going to be casual gamers, maybe parents with young people who they're trying to introduce to games, because it's not only important when you have a game that you want to be accessible to a lot of people, that it be easy to learn, that it be easy to play and fast to play, but it needs to keep you engaged as well, or else you're just not going to have a lot of interest in playing it with more casual players. So there is enough here for that. So if you are a hardcore gamer, if you want something with a little more depth and strategy, you can find that here in Crashum, as well as letting it be accessible to the people in your life who might want something a little bit easier. So that's Crashum, and it is on Kickstarter right now. You can follow the link up in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Find out more information on the page than I could possibly tell you here, see some images of what the final version of the game will look like, and then hopefully you will consider backing the project. That is Crashum from Wacky Works. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.